Welcome. I want you to clear your mind with a deep, cleansing breath. And imagine your typical yoga instructor. And get out of here with that shit! Because today's guest is an all-around badass and not the type of yoga instructor that you bargained for. Ivan Wayne here, host of The More You NoCo, a podcast covering the people and ideas around northern Colorado. Today's guest, Christi Sullivan, is the owner of Loveland Yoga and Core Fitness. She's also the author of Strength Yoga, a yoga practice guide. It was awesome to sit down and have an hour-long talk with Christi. I love her approach to yoga, and her yoga studio is super cool. Want to know why Christi is the opposite of what you might have been thinking when you downloaded this episode? Stay right here and check out the episode for yourselves. Alright, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Here I sit in person with Christi Sullivan, the owner of Loveland Yoga and Core Fitness.
Hello.
And we are sitting here in your studio.
Yes.
And the first thing I want to ask about is the amazing artwork in the studio. Sometimes I feel like when people think of a yoga studio, they think maybe pastel colors on the wall, but the art over there.
They do your most common or typical yoga studio is full of light, and not that there's not light coming in here, but it's really light, pastel, wood floors, real bright. And yeah, when you walk into my studio, I've got earth tone colors. I have a black rubber multi-purpose floor, not wood floors, and I have art all over the wall. And I'm blessed to be in downtown Loveland, where there's just tons of artists on every corner, and they've all come into the studio somehow and have blessed the studio with their talent.
Yeah, this huge piece on the wall, is that a single artist or?
Yes, that piece is by Kelly Lundeen.
Okay.
And the Lundeen family is huge in the artist community, and he's very, very talented.
Right.
So
I want to snap a photo of that, possibly for our Instagram page.
Absolutely.
Right. So we got a lot to get into here.
Yep.
So Christi, first, you were mentioning to me before we started recording someone named Paul Czech.
Yes.
And that you were a Czech personal trainer?
Yes, I'm a Czech practitioner. So
Okay.
It's a little bit more involved for your training than your standard personal training. There's some great personal training programs out there, so certainly not dissing anybody. It's just the route that I chose to go. And we get really, really involved in assessing. I can pretty much assess the crap out of your body.
That's good.
Yeah, all the way down. And from there, it can begin to build a program. Now, do I have to assess the body in a 3.5 hour assessment every single time for everybody? No, I don't. And this is where I'm going to kind of jump ahead a little bit into the next thing that I do with FMA.
Yeah, no order.
So FMA Strength Training Strength Institute is actually based out of Australia. A friend of mine who was a part of the Czech Institute put together this FMA Institute program where he was able to take that enormous assessment that we do at the Czech Institute, and we whittled it down to where we look for the big things that I need to correct or fix or realign or whatever, and then the small stuff should sort itself out. And if it's not going to sort itself out, then it'll show up and I'll have to address it at some point. But then this is where my PDTR training will also come in. So PDTR is fairly brand new technique. I know I'm jumping ahead for you.
No, this is great.
Dr. Jose Palomar is the one who's developed this corrective technique, and it's extremely powerful technique, and it's really life-altering for a lot of people especially who have dealt with a pain they thought they had to live with, or they've been to tons of other people and they've just struggled getting full relief. They might get palliative or temporary relief from some of the other modalities, but there's this missing piece that PDTR and Dr. Palomar brought in. And now Dr. Palomar is an active orthopedic surgeon, so this is really hardcore science-based, and he actually now operates on like less than 3% of his patients. And so he's now going around the world teaching practitioners chiros, personal trainers, physical therapists, anybody who works with people to teach them this technique to start helping people feel better. It's a really amazing technique.
Right. So jumping right in here.
Yeah.
We are quickly building a case that this studio and yourself, this is much more than just yoga.
It's way more than just yoga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
all those techniques, all those things that I've learned from the Czech Institute and FMA and PDTR, I start bringing into the classroom setting, which is extremely challenging because it's really complex concepts. And so I spend the majority of my time really studying a lot of this so I can actually bring it into a classroom setting and see how can I implement some of this into the group, basically. So with FMA, I learned about structural anomalies, which this is an enormous piece of strength yoga, the yoga I created, because we all hear in yoga, the pose conforms to you. But yet when you're in the pose and you're finding that place that feels good for you, depending on the class, of course, it's not all instructors, then the instructor turns around and puts you back into that position that didn't actually feel good because that's how they were taught the pose was correct, which is now technically not correct because everybody's body is different, which we all acknowledge, okay? But when we don't recognize what a structural anomaly looks like and how it would make a pose look, they're kind of stuck. Either they're strong enough to walk away from the person and go and realize this probably feels best for this person, or they may go in and put them in the position they were taught that was correct. Okay, so there's no absolutes. That's like the first rule, the absolute rule of no absolutes. Okay.
And how would people know if they had a structural anomaly?
The person teaching the class would have to recognize what that looks like because a lot of people don't realize some of the stuff that might be going on in their body, and some of this is really subtle. So by looking at bony landmarks on the body, we can begin to build a case of reference lines from joint to joint. So I'm looking from the ankle joint to the knee joint, then the knee joint to the hip joint, and then the hip joint to the shoulder, and then the shoulder to the hand. And I'm now going, okay, this is how it looks like to be the best possible way to do it. Here's the orthopedic profile. If you held that orthopedic profile, then you're going to find yourself easily getting into the pose. Now, let's say you don't easily get into the pose. It's probably because you don't actually hold the orthopedic profile, the structure for the shoulder joint mobility, thoracic mobility, hip mobility. So a squat with an arm over arm head position is a really common position. So in the weight room, that's an overhead squat. Okay. So we have to have lots of ankle mobility, hip mobility, and thoracic mobility. Okay. But when we come into yoga, the pose that's similar to that is Utkatasana. So you're just in a squat position with the arms up over your head. So it still actually holds the same orthopedic profile, especially for the upper body. And that's what I'm looking at. And so if they're not holding it, I start adjusting really fast, okay? Because the biggest one that people are going to have trouble with is thoracic mobility. That's the spine that sits right in between the shoulder blades and the shoulder, because the most common workplace now is sitting in front of your computer, and we get stuck in roundedness, okay? So then if you do go to the gym, your workout program might be unbalanced and more flexion-based, where you're doing more chest presses and it's not balanced out with back exercises. You might be doing a lot of crunches and not balancing out with something else. You might go in and decide that cycling's your best option, which again, it's a great option, but if you're stuck in a seated position, to spend your workout in a seated position is just going to exacerbate this issue. Yeah. Okay, so when you're coming into class, I can see that as soon as the arms come up overhead, because it requires 10 to 15 degrees of thoracic extension. That means each individual vertebrae have to move into extension. And just because you can stand straight doesn't mean the vertebrae are going to all move in that same place. Okay. You might have one or two segments that are stuck. Okay. And then what has to be coupled with that is 60 degrees of upward scapular rotation. Okay. So if you don't have 10 to 15 degrees thoracic extension, I already know you don't have 60 degrees of upward scapular rotation. Yeah. So that means that your joint is now not stable. And when we get into, in yoga, we're not going to have weight in our hand over our head. But if I put you in down dog, I've now flipped you into that position. You're now traumatizing the shoulder joint and all the passive structures surrounding it. And then you have to have 120 degrees of glenohumeral movement. And I can see that as soon as somebody gets into Utkatasana, because they won't get their arms up over their head straight. They might shrug their shoulders. They might round more. And so instead of forcing them to be in that position, because there's no stretch there, because there's too many other things that have to happen before a stretch would be effective. And so I just start pulling their arms down and getting them into a better position that suits them. And if I need to, sometimes I start the class with thoracic mobility and all that kind of fun stuff. It just depends on what people are asking for the day as well. And so that's the type of stuff I'm pulling into class. So there's hip anomalies called retroversion and anteversion that will dictate how much external and internal rotation that you have at the knee, so that dictates the squat pattern I'm going to put you in, stuff. So, and it's just catching it and just moving them around so they can get into their pose, and that's super important stuff. But that's what I'm trying to bring into the community as well. I wrote a book, and it's more for the general person, but I'm putting an online program together about teaching and being able to eyeball some of this.
Yeah, what was your book that you wrote?
Strength yoga, actually. It's for the everyday yogi stuff. So I basically took a teacher training manual and shifted it towards anybody who just wants to learn yoga, and pulled in some of these concepts. And I wrote it how I would talk to my class so people would understand it. And I give you links and stuff. You can message me if you want. And if you have questions, I will answer. And it's important.
Yeah, we'll definitely get people your contact info at the end here. So, book, Strength Yoga, you've mentioned it a couple times already. Mm-hmm. How is that different than what people may perceive typical yoga?
People perceive typical yoga as stretchy, because they'll always go, "Oh, I'm not flexible." I'm like, "Well, good, because I don't care if you're flexible or not." Well, you can actually gain a lot of flexibility from a strength pose, and it's knowing how to manipulate the movements to get a stretch response off of a squat, off of a lunge, and that becomes a functional stretch. And it has a higher carryover than just holding an isolated stretch. Now, do I hold isolated stretches? Yes, they do serve a purpose, but I wait till the end. And there's also protocol for how long should you really hold a stretch for a benefit, or is it going to affect your activity that you're getting ready to go into next? Okay, so I'm hypermobile, which means stretching is actually the last thing I need to be doing, because I already have an enormous amount of flexibility. And so there's a scale that we learned at the Czech Institute. It's the Rockabato Flexibility Scale. This is a South American PT that put this together. There's different scales. So from 0 to 3, hypomobile, that means you don't have a lot of flexibility, and we need to get you a flexibility program, and regularly. Between 4 and 6 on the scale, you are physiologic. That means you're normal. God forbid. I know the way the world normal goes around nowadays, it makes it sound like it's a really bad thing. But and then between 7 and 9 is hypermobile. That means I'm actually structurally unsound, and I have to do a lot more strength oriented stuff and not as much flexibility stuff. So I can elicit lots of flexibility, whether you're hypermobile or not, in the strength yoga class, and you can develop flexibility that way in long term. There is protocol for how long you should hold stretches, depending on if it's going to cause a potential injury for your sport that you might be getting ready to go into. So if I am doing a gentle class where I do more stretchy oriented things, neck musculature, we're only holding for about 5 or 10 seconds. I know, we got a nice little fly rolling around here.
We got a fly in here
yes.
looking to sign up for a class.
So if I'm teaching that class, like I'm going to tomorrow morning, it's 9:30 in the morning. I don't need your muscles sedated in the sense of they're not going to respond fast enough or the way they're supposed to if I hold a stretch longer. And there is plenty of research out there that shows that 30 to 60 seconds is long enough, and otherwise past that there's a detriment to the activity you're getting ready to do, which for some people it's just the rest of their day, which that's still an activity. So bigger musculature, we're looking at 20, 30, maybe 60 seconds and stuff. So, but of course there's a bunch of yin yoga people that would disagree with you. They like to hold stretches for 3 to 5 minutes, and it's about getting into the deeper layers of the fascia. So we have layers upon layers. Our system is redundant, and it's important that it is, because if one system is having a bit of trouble, we can get into another system to help out. Anyway, with that, and again, you're going to find research that just says it's time under tension that you have gotten used to. You're not lengthening the muscle any further than what your genetic potential has already dictated the length of the muscle is going to be. Okay, just like with strength. You have a genetic potential, I have a genetic potential, and we're going to get to those ends, and we're going to find that we kind of almost hit a wall on some of those gains. Same things will happen with flexibility. We only have so much that was gifted to us, but you're not going to lengthen muscles.
Right.
Yeah.
In your program, do you ask for people's number along this scale, or how do you figure that out?
Oh, what I do, so it's just a series of me moving joints around, and I have them do it, and I'll have the whole class do it and stuff. It's bending your pinky back, your thumb, touching your. I know. Yes. Yeah. Can bend it past 90 degrees. You can touch your thumb to your wrist, going to the elbow. We've seen people who have hyperextended elbows. A lot of people will say they're double jointed. There's no such thing. It's just a lack. It's just a lack.
Conspiracy.
I know. It's just a lack of passive structure integrity is what it is. So they need to build more muscular strength. And then, of course, we look at hypermobility at the knee. And then the last one has to do being able to touch the floor with your knees pretty much locked out. And if you can go flat, I'm just counting numbers. So if it's 0 to 9 and I start going, this is what you need, this is what you need, this is what you don't need, so yeah.
So are you running different courses for people who want more stretching, more flexibility, and then other classes for people who want more strength? Or do you have classes where you hit both, or?
Yep. So I have gentle classes. So the gentle classes are more geared towards the gentler side of yoga, which is, the meditation aspect of it, the focus, but that's in all the classes. Right. There's more stretching that's associated with those classes. So if you see power on the schedule, or you see strength yoga or strength yoga with weights, I'm going to be combining those attributes, and I'll be getting stretching from the strength poses plus developing strength on top of it. And then some isolated stretches at the end, meditation, then we're done. So, yeah.
Some people would claim, and I would suspect that these people have not done yoga, but they would claim, what's the point? It seems easy. And I, admittedly, used to think that too. I thought it was just stretching. And then I've been to 2 different yoga classes in my life, and I've also done them at home in my living room with apps. And I think I agree with the sentiment that if you think it's easy, you're not doing it right.
Exactly. Exactly. So one of my first presentations at a conference, first one was at like the Czech conference a few years ago, and then Mark Buckley, who is the founder of FMA Strength Institute, he asked if I would present at his conference that he was having, which was in Australia. And of course, I said yes in a split second. I don't even think I thought about it. And I was really kind of nervous because I was actually teaching yoga to a bunch of big names in strength and conditioning who thought yoga was a joke. And I was
like... Talk about pressure.
I know. Well, Mark didn't quite think it was a joke. He just didn't quite know enough about it. Brett Contreras was there. Rachel Guy was there, and she's a big name in Australia and the UK, and some other people that were big names in Australia. And you know what? The way I presented the class, they loved it. They laughed. They thought it was hard, and they got a lot of strength off of it. They got a lot of flexibility off of it. And oddly enough, what they liked the most at the end was when I did a guided meditation, because the way they were being presented yoga was, you need to be in a quiet room and empty your mind. And I started laughing too.
Namaste.
Because you don't take a type A personality like these guys and go, let's shut this off. Okay. So you got to speak their language, and I speak their language. And I understand strength and conditioning, but I also understand this aspect of it, and it's just fusing the two. So I could take their skills at strength and conditioning, because that requires a ton of focus. That's a ton of meditation, actually, to have 300 pounds over your head or more doing an overhead squat. That's focus. Yeah. Serious focus.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so I take that focus. If I need them in the yoga for the meditation, I go, we're just gonna bring it down a little bit. Okay,
there it is.
Yeah, it's the same focus, but I'm going to guide and help you so you understand how I need that focus to be. So this is where the guided meditation is really helpful for anybody that is having difficulty scaling it down just a bit, where it's like, I need you to visualize being next to a stream or a lake or a mountain, something that makes you feel peaceful, okay? Because I need peace in the meditation. I don't need peace when you have 300 or more pounds up over your head. That's different, folks. I want the mountain.
Yeah.
For that. Yeah. So it's taking their skills and taking the yoga language and turning it into their language, so it's more receptive.
Right. How many skeptical first timers do you host here?
Goodness, I haven't had any in a while. Some of them are just kind of, it's really, I don't, all my instructors present their class very differently than I do, because that's what I want. It's about being authentic. I am actually quite secular when I'm presenting my class. Not only do I have, for the physical aspect, have all levels at all times in the class, we have different belief systems that are also coming into the class as well, that are very valid. And I stick with more universal truths when I bring this stuff into class. I have other instructors that pull in more of what they've learned in yoga. Not that I don't want to, I translate. I just sit and translate the whole time. Mm-hmm. That way people can realize that what they're doing too, they can call it yoga too if they want to, but they don't. Are you feeling peaceful and relaxed and you're nice and you're bringing that out into the world? Great. You can call that whatever you want. Right. Yeah.
It's a healing experience.
It's healing. It's healing.
Maybe it's an hour and a half of getting your ass kicked while relaxing at the same time.
You can, actually. I used to do a lot of power yoga almost right before I went to bed so I could go to sleep, believe it or not. Because all the class ends the same. Every class ends the same. Last 15, 20 minutes, we're stretching you out, relaxing you, last 5 minutes, Shavasana, where you're just laying down. And that's what's magical about a power yoga class for me, or a strength yoga class. Warming you up. There's a lot of strength involved with flexibility, and I can relax all at the same time. I'm getting it all in one shot.
Right.
Yeah.
What's your take on hot yoga?
Hot yoga. It's okay. I've done it. And
it's okay. We're 5 out of 10 on it.
5 out of 10. The heat can be extremely stressful it is stressful on anyone's body, and depending on how your body is able to deal with the stress will depend on my answer for you. Because if you have a high physiological load, here comes all my check training, where we get into all this type of stuff. If you have a high stress load, the last thing I want to do to you is add extreme heat to this, because you're not going to tolerate it very well. Because one of the most difficult things for the body to do stress-wise is to try to cool itself off. So if you've had a rough day, rough month, whatever, you have tons of major things happening, and your stress level is going, and you know yoga is the thing you need to be doing, I wouldn't put you in hot yoga first. That would be the last place I would put you in. But of course, your physiological stress load is unknown to me, so I wouldn't even know. Looking at you, I would say, go for it. Just make sure you have some water with you.
And make sure your mind's in a good spot.
Yeah.
You're not too worried when you're going into it, because you're about to have a hell of an experience.
Yeah, like
I've never done a hot yoga session.
I remember when my friend Steve took me to one. He was all excited about it. It was before I opened up my studio, and I was like, this is the typical sequence and stuff. And I went into it, and I'm like, as far as the sequence, and it's not dissing anybody. If you like it, that's awesome. And if you don't, that's awesome. I don't like it, because I think it's the most boring sequence I've ever done in my life. And it's not to be entertained. I get that. But it's still, I'm for me personally, I was just like, well, I probably wouldn't do it more than 1 or 2 more times. I always give something about 3 times before I make a final
That's a good rule.
Decision, because the first time, you've never experienced it before, so I don't have anything to compare it to, really. And so I would go 2 or 3 more times, and I'm just like, yeah. As far as like the hot yoga sequence, I don't like it. I think it's boring, but I know a lot of people do like it. Yeah. It keeps them going, and that's awesome for them. I need something a little bit different, a little bit more flowing, and that gets me lost in my own moving meditation is what that does for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And with hot yoga, you couldn't do the amount of weight that you're doing in strength yoga, right? It probably would overexert you, or? Well,
for what I'm doing in strength yoga with weights is you can have anywhere between 1 and 5, maybe 8 pounds. But I also tell you, if it's too much for you that day, just put it down.
Right.
Yeah, it's not important, because we all walk into the room with different strength gas tanks for the day. That has nothing to do with experience. Like, I've been sick this week, actually, and so I haven't used weights for the 2 classes, and I think, like, earlier in the week, I wasn't even participating. I truly had to walk around and teach and stuff, and I couldn't participate because it was too much. Right. The whole thing was too much.
Yeah, and we were talking about people's self-awareness before the podcast started getting recorded here, that this is a big thing, people's energy levels and being aware of that as they walk in. Yeah,
exactly. Like tonight at 4:30, I teach, though I start the class, every single class this way. You know, we'll start in child's pose, and we start, what's our intention, okay? I don't actually even start with breathing, because if you have chaotic, stressful shit going on in your head in the first place, your breath and your body respond to that. So I start with the thoughts first. What is it that you want more of? We want more peace, we want more calm, we want more energy, we want more joy, we want more playfulness. And already what the body's going to start to do, because we start going into all of our references for all of those things, because we've all experienced it. Those are the parts we love. Right. And that's why we come into class, and we don't want to say, I want less stress. Your body doesn't understand the word less. It only has the reference for stress.
Right.
Same thing with anxiety or whatever. So that's why when I start, I don't use those words. I say, we want more of. And you start connecting with what you want more of. And then what happens is that the breath begins to calm down all on its own. And then I go, then watch what happens. We start moving and stretching. It's going to deepen all on its own as well, because now we have muscles that have to get stretched because of the response to stress all day. So when we run through Sun A and Sun B, that's just the warm-up parts basically of flowing vinyasa strength or power yoga class. I start talking about all this. I'm like, if you walked in, you have lots of high energy, you may find that your gas tank is actually really closer to the quarter tank, and you might have to start slowing down, and you might not have realized it because now there's a bigger effort you've been putting out for physically for the class. Some of you are walking in just in this brain fog and you feel like shit, and you feel lucky that you made it here. And
I walked in the damn door.
Yeah, exactly. That's like enormous. And I said, you might find as we start releasing all this stuff, you might start waking up and your energy levels are much higher than you realized. And then you're going to have people in between that might not, they wouldn't tell you either way, and they could go either direction as well. And I'm like, now after Sun B, after Sun B,
we're doing it live.
I know. Then we get to go, I go, now check in. How do you feel? Because you get to dictate the intensity of your class, not me.
Right.
Okay, maybe there is no vinyasa. The vinyasa is the high to low chaturanga, up dog, and then down dog. That's what's now been deemed a vinyasa. Make sure there's nobody leaving a message. And so maybe you're doing on your toes, a full plank because you got enough upper body strength for the day. Maybe you drop down to your knees. Maybe you have to skip it altogether. Maybe you want to add push-ups in between up dog and down dog. I offer up all these options all the time because they're all viable options. And because you have a lot of strength and you've decided, yep, I'm going to add push-ups every single vinyasa, one push-up in between, does that mean you're committed the rest of the class to do it? God, no. I don't. I'm like, oh, this seems like a good place to do it. Maybe a second time, maybe a third time. That third time I go, I might not have it. And that's okay. And I skip it. It's okay. I've already challenged myself. I've already put myself to the edge. I don't need to jump off the cliff and screw myself and have more of a catabolic effect, a destructive effect, instead of an enlivening and strengthening effect.
Yeah. So ideally at the end of a strength yoga session, everyone will have felt like I did as hard as I could and I feel exactly where I want to be. I'm exhausted, but it's at a healthy level. Do you find people struggle finding that, getting to that point at the end, and then how do you increase people's ability?
Yeah, it's a lot of practice for awareness. So it's me really kind of repeating constantly the same things and reinforcing. And then at some point going over and just saying, okay. And at the end of the day, you still get to choose that. You still get to choose to beat the shit out of yourself if that's what you choose to do. And if you choose not to do that, that's okay too. I will talk about the ramifications of both. You get the choice.
Right.
Yep. At every single time. I do use scare tactics as I give those consequences, because my hope is that they hear that and realize it has a bigger impact on their day. So a golfer doesn't want to hear that the stretching's good for him. He wants to hear it's going to be good for his golf swing. And how can I improve that golf swing?
Or a fighter wants to get ready for the next fight.
Exactly.
Or the painter wants to be able to paint for a sustained amount of time.
Exactly. So I know most of everybody what they do for a living, and I need to start relating it to that. This is what's going to help you with this. If you don't pull your head back where the chin is pulled back, ears over the shoulders, you will get a dowager's hump. End of story. It's not a if, it's when. Okay. And so I start pulling in some of the neurological rules that I've learned in PDTR. I pull them into class. If you look forward while I need glute max engaged, you will not engage it because it's neurologically shut off. That is a norm. It's part of gait because when you walk, you want some muscles facilitated. You want the other ones inhibited. Same thing applies in here. So it's just learning those rules. And then I go, and you can also get a disc bulge. You could in the neck or the lumbar spine, and I will talk about that. And it's pretty amazing how quick I get the position I want them to be in. But still at the end of the day.
Oh my God, I mean.
I know, it's kind of like, yeah, does that make it sound like I have a control issue? Sort of. I give the consequence. I educate. You still get to choose.
Right.
And if you choose that you want to look forward or you want to be rounded in the pose, I have to let it go.
Right.
And go, okay, I have to work on my control issue because I really want them to be there.
Right. Well, you want them to do it correctly. And there's nothing wrong with that.
But there's also something that's important called imperfect training. That is important to
now we're just going down another level.
I know. It's crazy. So I also learned this in FMA. Well, look at all the stuff that's out there now. You know, you're picking up heavy bags. You're doing all this. It's part of some of the newer trends and stuff like that out there. So, you know, especially if I have a consistent group of people coming in and we're doing everything right, whatever that means. And then one day I decide, we're just going to do imperfect training today, which means if you want your knees to fall inward on your squat today, let them. You have to be strong in all angles in order to be strong at all angles. Okay, so it's just for today. Who cares, right? So if you trip, are you really going to land on your heel, knee on top of the ankle, middle of the kneecap, lining up on the second and third toe? Maybe.
Or you're going to catch it with your face.
You're going to catch it with your face. Exactly. So, but there's something in it, you know, there's something valid about imperfect training. And of course, you have to have somebody that has a good eye for what even imperfect training wrong looks like. Okay. I know. It's crazy.
I don't even know what to ask about that.
I know. It's so crazy. I know. I have lots of stuff going on in my head while I'm watching all these people, and it's fun.
Okay, this is the perfect time to ask this question I've been sitting on for a bit. You know people's professions. Mm-hmm. We want good, solid training that's healthy for the body. We also have imperfect training. We want the strength approach, but we also want to look for people with anomalies. And we have people with all different levels of interest. And you're doing this all at the same time, with the same group of people. How? What the hell?
What the hell am I doing, right? Yeah.
I just feel like your brain would be on dubstep for an hour as you're trying to run this thing.
So how am I pulling them in, or how am I teaching the class? Both?
Well, okay, so like you're adjusting for anomalies. You're adjusting for levels. You're adjusting if this is too hard for them, too easy for them. You're getting feedback from this group, but there's two different individuals who are probably giving you opposite feedback at the same time. Do you aim for the middle? You know?
Okay. I think I know what you're saying.
How are you balancing all these?
Okay. Well, one, I have to walk around the room. I have to walk around the room, and I'll move people as I'm doing it because I can see it. Okay. But that's why I spend my time studying bodies. What does Utkatasana or Warrior 1, Warrior 2 look like on you? And I come by and I move you a little bit if it looks kind of really funny and go, okay, I'm going to make an assumption here that I have a structural anomaly and change the position. And if they all feel better, it's great. Okay. If I'm getting two different answers, it's too hard, too easy, I will give them the same answer. You get to choose the intensity. If it's too easy, find a deeper lunge.
So it's on them.
It's too hard, get out of the lunge. This is not on me.
Yeah.
I gave Warrior 1 as your option. You choose the depth. You choose the depth, but you're not committed to the depth. If it's getting too hard, you're coming to your edge, you're getting ready to jump over that edge, back out. It's not hard enough. You're not even close to your edge. Find depth.
Right.
Yeah. They'll get the same answer.
And how do you balance the fishers with the painters, with the accountants, who are looking for different functional uses out of the poses,
okay,
the structure of the class?
So we all want to be strong at our most basic movement patterns. So that's where my focus actually stays, okay? So we all want to be able to squat, right? We all want to, really, because we all want to squat on the toilet, really. The most foundational thing is taking a shit, actually, okay? Yeah. So it's like, and I will talk about that in class, which, yes, I'm one of the few that will talk about poop in class and all that kind of good stuff. But that is...
Holistic.
It's holistic. Yeah. I cover it all. So we all want to be able to squat down and get back up by ourselves. We all want to get up off the floor and down to the floor by ourselves as we get older. So I take all your basics. There's 7 primal movement patterns, okay? They're all in the yoga postures, okay? And I put them together, okay? And that's where I stay. That's where I maintain my focus, sorry. And because if you're not strong at the foundation, who cares about everything else? Okay.
The house will crumble.
The house will crumble if the foundation is not strong.
Right.
Okay.
For our listeners, I want to take a brief pause here and note that this is the only interview yet that I have been sitting on is this a yoga ball, medicine ball?
It's a Swiss ball.
A Swiss ball. It's like an exercise ball,
yep.
right? I'm
yep.
sitting a little lower than chair level. And talking about the thoracic spine, the health of posture, I've never changed the way I've been sitting so many times in less than an hour, because I'm sitting here like metacognitively thinking about what you're telling me, and and I know with all of your knowledge you're probably watching me do these weird gyrations and like, is this guy okay?
I'm like, I'm just figuring you're probably just adjusting for all this stuff too, right, at the same time. And some people will overcorrect. People always overcorrect in front of me. Always.
Oh, really? This is interesting. Why do you think that is? Because they're trying to prove, I know how. Because
I spend my day working on posture on everyone, and then suddenly they go, I'm going to stand straight. Yep. Everything. Yeah. And I'm just like, it's whatever. It's like if you come up on a priest or a pastor and you're like, and you find out they're a priest or a pastor and you go, man, I haven't been to church.
It just comes out,
It just comes out.
Father, I've been meaning to get in there.
Well, and you know what? It's fun to be on the ball as well, because I like to move around on the ball because it's very nice and fluid, and it feeds the spine, and you get to move that pelvis around versus being stuck in a regular chair where if you can't move that way and stuff. So I just figured... that's what you were doing.
Oh, that's
I wasn't critiquing.
Oh, that's good. I was sitting here worried. I think I definitely overcorrected at the start, and I thought, I feel very strange. I need to stop doing this.
It's all good.
Yeah. So you also have a strength training area in the back.
Yes.
So that was a surprise to me.
I know. So I have like yin and yang going on truly in the studio. Yes, on the other side, I have a quad cable machine, and I have a powerlifting squat rack and a cable or a lat pull down machine. Because really my first job is being a personal trainer. When Orchards Athletic Club was Orchards Athletic Club. It's now actually reopening as a Club Loveland. I was a personal trainer there. This is when I was going through my Czech training, and I was finding, based off of what I was learning, it was a little bit more challenging to maintain clientele past correcting their primal movement patterns. Basically, I'd get them out of pain. That is something I'm definitely known for. Is if they're like, if these people can't figure it out, Christi probably can, and which is definitely very nice to hear. And so, and at some point, it just felt like it was time for me just to be on my own, and I had to figure out something that was going to support the personal training side, and of course, yoga was the first thing that popped into my head. And I've been practicing yoga actually for about 30 years. So, but to have it attached onto it as a business, I was like, whoa, I think that's what I'm going to do. And that was in 2009 when, the market crashed. And I walked
Interesting time to start a business.
I know. I was
like a year after.
Year after, I'm like, oh yeah, let's just open up a yoga studio and a personal training studio, and I can apply all those skills that I have as a trainer, yoga instructor, helping you get out of pain into the yoga classes and stuff, and it's been working out quite well.
How was that leap? Going from I've done yoga and I'm enthusiastic about it to I'm going to run my own business and this is going to be my livelihood.
I clearly jumped into the deep end. I had to learn how to swim really fast because that wasn't originally my plan. My plan was to get my yoga teacher training, start saving money, then find a place. I was telling one of my friends about this. 2 weeks later, he said, Christi, I found you a place. I looked at it. I went, oh my God, I signed a contract, and before I know it, I had stuff moved in here, painting, doing all this stuff. And yeah, it was a month later, not a year later. And so I was like, wow. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You did it.
Yeah. So, and then over the course of the years, then I've have gotten into personal development classes so I can learn more about business strategies as well, on top of how that impacts me or what I'm doing impacts the business. And so that's why I started following Brendon Burchard, Lewis Howes. I went through a program called Chase Life to help with all of that as well. And it's really awesome. So
I'm going to ask you something ambiguous. Hope there's an answer. Do you think there is a difference in physical or psychological need for power yoga and meditation? Do you think it's more or less since you started up in 2009?
Oh, for power? So there's this need for...
Or just, do you think people are in need of what yoga provides them? Now, more, or back when you started? Or is it the same and that's kind of a dumb question, Ivan?
It's not a dumb question. It's not a dumb question. We're seeing lots and more yoga studios popping up around, and we're seeing yoga becoming more implemented into lots of businesses. And actually a guy who was here yesterday, he's a prison guard out in Pennsylvania. He's taking a month off. Thank goodness, because he needs a break from all that. And he's coming into the yoga studio because they're actually bringing yoga into the prison system there. And I think the psychological aspect of what yoga provides is extremely necessary. And however you want to bring that into your world is awesome. If you want to do it through a yoga sequence where we just call it asana, if you want to take it through that, that's fine. But we want you to be able to take it into the hike that you're going to go on with your dog, or into your workplace. That pausing when you feel that yourself getting really super angry or triggered over something that might not be the actual reason why you just got triggered and stuff. And can you recognize that and take a step back and just breathe and just remove yourself, calm down, and then go back into the situation with fresher eyes, calmer eyes, more compassionate, loving eyes and heart. So that part of it, I think the need is essential. I think people need to move all the time, in the sense of there's not enough people moving. It's the percentage of people that's moving in the country is quite small. So Paul Chek
moving
puts,
as in, you mean active?
Exercising, yeah.
Exercising, right.
So it's like the people that you see out.
Like don't tell natives of Colorado that people
they're very
are
active
not
here.
moving.
They're very active here. Yeah, very active here. And this is why I think they love power yoga and strength yoga and everything. And so because it's very, very active here, which is awesome. So it's like 3% of the population for women and only 8% of men are the ones that are actually working out regularly. These are the people that we see out.
Yeah.
This is a stat that Paul Chek likes to throw out there, and I can't remember the resource that he mentions. I'd have to go look that up. And so it's just the people we see out. And when we walk into a gym or whatever, it seems like a lot of people.
But it's never.
But it's not.
If
Not
you
if obesity's growing.
And if you took the population of the town, divided it by how many exercise centers there are, and that's how many would be in the gym every day.
Yeah, exactly. Happening. Right. So, yeah. So the psyche part, it's needed more than ever. The asana, the physical aspect of it is another outlet. And it's a toolbox. We want to pull out the right tool for what we need. The meditation part is always, for the most part, crucial. But it's how do we do that now? Is it with gentle yoga? Is it with power yoga? Is it with Tai Chi? Is it with Qigong? Is it with, I got to go run. I just got to go run. Or I got to go do pull-ups. It's just something. It's not the physical activity that actually matters. It's the mindset.
What's it doing for your brain?
Yeah.
Right.
As long as you're getting rid of all the shit in your mind that's causing all the chaos and the stress, boy, let the modality be its own, and let that mindset of calmness, peacefulness, just escaping for just a little while.
How long are your sessions? An hour, 90 minutes?
An hour.
Mm-hmm. That hour may be the only time that some of the people in your class are away from texts, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, email, and 100 other things.
Yep.
We are so tied to this phone and tied to instant updates and feedback and breaking news, and this yoga session or an exercise session where they intentionally decide to leave their phone, which is when I do when I'm exercising. Right. And I enjoy that time.
Isn't it an amazing feeling when you get away from your phone? Yeah, when I walk my dog, I'll bring one of my dogs in the morning, and then when I'm done with class, we'll run our errands, we'll go to the bank, then I go to the park, and then I walk him, but I intentionally leave my phone because I've had to have the phone next to me almost the whole time. And I leave my phone in the car, and it's tempting to bring it with me, but my time is now with Louie, and boy, as soon as about 2 minutes away from that phone, that anxiety starts to go away. Like, should I leave my phone? Should I leave my phone? And I'm like, God, I'm so glad I left my phone. And then 30 minutes later, an hour, whatever it happens to be on the walk, you can take that deep breath, and I don't even really look at the phone when I get back in the car, Oh,
I definitely do.
Yeah.
Like if I'd left the car in the phone in the car, as soon as the car's in sight, it's like,
oh, you can see people when people leave the session.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's on their phones.
Yeah, everyone's sitting in their car checking their phone, and I'm like,
that is so fascinating.
It is.
And that's
funny.
Me, right?
It is funny. Like, well, I might look, but I might not. It's not likely that I would sit there and answer. I'll look and go, all that can wait till I get home, and I can answer when I get home.
Oh, I wish I had such resolve.
It's practice. That was practice. I used to sit in the car and answer. It's taken a lot of practice to not be so attached to it.
The flip side of that, though, is that a lot of times it's people that you love. And, it can be really easy to walk out, look at like 10 cars of people outside the yoga studio. Everyone's looking down on their phones, not driving yet. And you think, oh my God, we are so tethered to technology. It's taken over. But also the other side of that is that these are people that they love. These are family members. These are parents and siblings. And so, gosh, there's the other side of it that it's like, I get it. Work emails at 9 o'clock at night, that's another thing. Or if you see someone and they're just like mindlessly scrolling through a social media feed, that's a different story.
Right.
But a lot of times, especially if it's phone calls or messages, they're important.
Yeah, they are. It is the world we live in, and just like anything else, it's about creating a healthy relationship with it. Yeah.
Finding the right time, the right methods, the right environment.
Yeah. When you find yourself like not being able to let it go is actually when you probably should just put it down, walk away.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's been 9 years owning this business. Has it changed you in any way, owning your own yoga studio as a person?
Yeah, I've changed a lot in the past few years. And really that, because I had to grow as a business person. I have now I have business experience and stuff, but I did have to learn on the fly. And of course, then I get into, if I don't know something, I've got to go find how I can learn all this stuff. And that's where I got into studying Brendan Burchard's stuff, Lewis Howes, with business and strategizing. Chase Life was enormous for me, actually, because it got into the personal development of just me and how I could either create a life-enhancing life and discover my beliefs that were sabotaging certain things. That's where that course for me was very, very powerful and stuff. And I still utilize all those strategies that I learned. And they're almost the consistent strategies that I see other personal development coaches do as well. And of course, they have their own unique twist on it and stuff. So,
do you feel you look at the practice of yoga the same as you did in 2009?
No,
or something
not at all.
Shifted within
not
you
at all.
about
I am far more. I'm less controlling in the classroom than I used to be.
But still working on it.
I used to be like, God damn it, you need to do the pose like this. And if you're not going to fucking do it that way, get out. That was almost my attitude. And the more I learned about all of this stuff with all of my courses, compensation patterns, that's actually held in the brain. It's just all this stuff. And I was like, whoa, I need to back off. Let these people have some freaking fun because they have, and that's what it's now turned into. Like I said before the broadcast, sometimes it's a serious class. Sometimes. I'm telling jokes. I'll curse in the middle of class, and people will curse at me in the middle of class, and we're laughing.
Well,
we're having.
That is hard.
Yeah, we're laughing. We're having a good time. It's also a release. And one of my favorite quotes that Osho put out there was, "Laughter is the highest form of spirituality." And I'm like, you know what? Stats are, adults, we laugh only 400 to 500 times per day. Kids laugh 4,000 to 5,000 times per day. Maybe it's like only 4 to 5 times for adults. Think about how many times, like some people, they're not laughing. They're not having that. That's a great release. And I'll tell you what, as soon as I get people laughing, they're relaxed. Mm-hmm. It changes the whole tone. And I don't even get focused on some of the other things. Like, again, like I'll mention, I'm like, yes, we want more calm. We want more peace. And yes, we're going to start to calm the breath and take deeper breaths. And then I'll just say something really dumb and everybody laughs and there it is. Everybody's relaxed. Everybody's there to have fun and have a good time. It's just how I like to run the class.
10 times less. I'm just sitting there gravitating around that number.
Yeah.
And I think I'm fascinated with humor. I always have been. And that's why I'm a PhD student at UNC. And that's what I want my career to be around, is using humor as an educator and teaching in psychology and education courses, but also studying humor, researching it, and see what are the benefits, how can it be replicated, and how does the subjectivity of humor play into the academic results we could see.
Absolutely. And people use humor as a defense mechanism as well.
Yeah.
And stuff. So, of course, in class, I'm clearly not trying to do that, but it's like I'm trying just to get them to chill out, and it's like, sorry if you don't want to laugh. And if nobody laughs, I do hit I have a microphone going, is anybody out there?
Well, then so then it turns into a second joke where you make fun of yourself.
Yeah,
that definitely happened to me today. I teach intro I have 90 students.
Nice.
And I made a joke, and it flatlined. 90, imagine, 90 faces and not a single laugh.
Not a smirk, nothing.
And I just looked up, and I said something that made fun of myself, and then it was like a roar of laughter, and it's like, I got you that time.
Yep.
You didn't think,
Yep.
but...
Yep, exactly.
So, and laughing is just so fun. Yeah, I really like that quote. And,
Yeah, it's a good quote. It's one of my favorite ones. Yep.
yeah. And I also think that there's some value that our listeners will hear from you, because I think a lot of people who are not a yogi and who are not in the yoga community, they have assumptions. And they might see that a yoga instructor is on the show, and then they're going to hear you, and it's totally different than what they may expect.
Yeah, so the assumption that, first of all, when I'm all covered up, of course, people won't see me anyway, but they think I'm going to be like really rail thin and uber flexible. And then they come to find out that I actually have a lot of muscle and stuff. So most people don't actually see that.
Oh, there it is.
And stuff. And so
game changers right here. You can't see it, but
exactly. Like, I have to lift weights for the integrity of my joints. I eat meat. So that is, you can be a vegetarian if you want to. There's actually nothing in any of the yoga script that actually says that you have to be a vegetarian. I'm only speculating. This came from, so in the 8 limbs of yoga, we have something called yamas and niyamas. And these are tenets of, basically, when you look at them, and again, it's a loose translation, 10 commandments. Okay. So when they decide that they're not going to eat meat anymore, it's usually because of a hisma, and that is called do no harm. So of course, in the 10 commandments, that means don't kill, right? Yeah, that's really what that means. Okay. And then the other ones, there's about non-stealing. There's one in, no, this is common sense stuff about living within your own self, and then integrating with the community, of course, and stuff. And that's usually where that one comes about. But you can actually do harm to your body by not actually eating certain flesh meat. And I'm not trying to make vegetarians all pissed off or vegans all pissed off or anything like that.
Nope. We're not looking for that Twitter mob. That's a tidal wave you will not serve.
No, especially right when I say that. Because that actually, we all have a different need for different things. So some people need more darker meat, fattier meat. Some people need more of the lighter, leaner meat. Some people can deal with more leafy greens. Some people can't. Some people can deal. I mean, this is about the unique individuality of everybody. So the same thing will hold true for all of this. So you're going to have people who do actually do well on a vegetarian-based diet because they're being actually really smart about it. So they don't actually cause harm to themselves. But there are a lot of people out there that do take it a bit too far on both sides. On both sides, too much meat eating can cause almost the same problems and stuff, and so which can cause adrenal fatigue and hypothyroidism and such symptoms like that. So it's always it's being aware. So that's usually where when they decide that they're going to go that direction. With the conversations I've had with people, I know that there's days that I don't want so much flesh meat. That's just because I don't actually just want it for that day. My body doesn't need it. Like this week, it's been too hard because I'm sick and it's just really complicated to digest. So I've just been doing much lighter proteins like eggs and dairy and gelatin and bone broth and that type of stuff. So, but yeah, that's an assumption that people like to make about yogis. Lots of people still make that about me, which is hysterical, until they see me eating a double bacon cheeseburger somewhere. And it's like, that's my favorite meal.
Yeah. Or they see the size of your biceps and they're like, what do you do? Are you on a construction line? And you're like, I'm a yoga instructor.
And they're like, what?
Who?
Yeah. Really?
Do you have a business card? Because I need to stop by.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, there's some of the assumptions that are really kind of funny, but yeah. Right. Or that I'm flighty, an airhead, and when you start talking to me, you realize I have a really huge science foundation, and I do really complicated things in the back of the room with PDTR and all that kind of good stuff.
I was trying to take notes earlier, and I just gave up because
PDTR is complicated.
Going so fast. Like, all the stuff that you were saying, I was like, I don't know if I could ask questions about this because I do not know what she is saying.
Well, and the difficult part is that when I am trying to explain it to somebody to kind of pull them in for a session or whatever, I end up actually having to do a demo on them so they can kind of get a better understanding of what I'm doing.
Connect it to their own body. And
exactly.
See, all right,
exactly.
When I say this and
or I send them to PDTRglobal.com so they can get more of a background of what PDTR is, and there's videos and you can watch Dr. Palomar or any of the practitioners in action. You still might not understand what's happening, but what you're going to see is that people are improving. Yeah.
You reminded me also about the perception of yogis and yoga. I don't know if have you heard of Joe Rogan's podcast?
Oh yeah, my housemate listens to his stuff all the time.
Yeah, I feel like there will be in the next couple of years millions of men walking into yoga studios because of Joe Rogan.
Oh really?
Yeah,
nice.
The way he advocates for it, and he balances his severe recommendation and passion for yoga with all other topics. I think,
nice.
We have a generation of people coming up, and men especially, who I feel like have shied away from yoga because they either don't understand it or they make false assumptions. And I think they're going to start opening the door.
It's easy. It's for girls. And I'm just like, that's all right. Come on in.
Come on in here.
I'm going to show you it's not for girls. I'll show you a girl workout, buddy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Do you ever have people where you see that they're not doing much and you're just like, all right, I'm going to turn it up to 12. I'm going to kick your ass. Here we go.
In yoga, no. But when I used to teach, Les Mills programs like Body Pump and stuff like that, I used to do it. And
you're telling me, in all your strength yoga, you haven't seen someone on the side who just looks like they're bored, and you think, all right, I'm going to put you in a pose.
No, not that I remember.
Okay.
Not that I fully remember. I'm sure there has been.
You're just trying to guide them to do the poses in an intensity that'll get them there. And if
then
they're bored, that's their fault.
And who am I to say that that's not the class experience they wanted? You get to create the experience you want.
This is true.
I do my best. I can't please everybody. I'm not out to please everybody. If you don't like my class, get out. There's other classes to go to.
Yeah. So
because Taylor teaches different from me. Kim teaches different from me. Let's say it's the studio that you don't actually connect with. Okay, there's lots of wonderful places that you might connect with. Yeah. So it's okay that people don't like me. Really.
Right.
Yep.
It might be a different fit.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally.
Any parting words as we wrap up the episode here?
Oh my goodness.
For people who maybe are on the cusp of trying to come into yoga, maybe they want to come get a workout in with Christi Sullivan.
Just come on in. I do 20 days for $20. You can't beat that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
20 sessions?
20. It's 20 days of yoga, so days run consecutive. So if you bought it today, it would end, middle or end at the end of the month or something like that.
Yeah.
You can come to, I do bar classes as well, so those are ballet fitness-oriented classes. You can come to any of those classes. If you want a PDTR session with me, if you're listening to the podcast, I will do a special of 30 minutes for $30.
Well, there it is.
There it is. I'll have to remember that.
No, you have to write that down.
If you're listening to this podcast and you want one.
Yeah, they're going to come in and say, I want that 30 for 30. And you're saying, I'm sorry, have we met before?
I know. It is. No, I'll remember, I promise.
Yeah. So if they want to reach out, sign up for this, get more information, website, email, what's the best way?
My website is lovelandyogacorefitness.com. And of course, there's a contact page that you can message me.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time, Christi.
You're welcome. Thank you for doing this.
I hope people come in and
Me
give
too.
this a shot.
I hope so,
They
too.
at least got to see the space.
Definitely, all the paintings.
Yeah. I want to say a special thank you to Russell Isaac Long, the man responsible for all the music used here at the NoCo. Are you looking for a little bit of bonus content in addition to the regular episodes on the show? Look for us out there on the interwebs on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at the NoCo. Until next time, peace!